Hey guys, and welcome back to the Academy Bites podcast with myself, David Lewis, higher level maths teacher and biology teacher here at the Dublin Academy of Education. I hope you've enjoyed the Academy Bites podcast so far. I hope you're getting a lot out of it. Me as a student, I would use it as a hack. It's basically getting other people to do the work for you. I had nothing like this back when I was in school, and I feel it will help benefit you if you listen to the ideas that these experts dedicated teachers are telling you and me. I feel that this will help you out, and basically just do what they say and it will be okay. In terms of biology, where should you be right now? So you've sat your mock, you may or may not have got your result. I will say a couple of things about mocks that I didn't want to say in the last idea there. Mocks are not made by the people who make your Leaving Cert. A lot of people think that they are. They are people, now they're paid to do it, so it is usually a good guess, but they are a guess. And sometimes, because they want to be creative, particularly with biology, because there's been such repetition over 17 years of the paper, mocks might not represent, number one, what your Leaving Cert will look like. I found that in the past. And number two, there's sometimes questions that are either far too hard, too easy, or just too diverse to actually be on the Leaving Cert. So they're a good judgment of where you're at, but the Leaving Cert past papers are a way better idea for you. Next thing is as well, the marking scheme doesn't actually change with mocks, whereas it does with the Leaving Cert based on how people are finding questions. So that's never taken into account. Next idea is, if you've gotten your result, that is something you build on. There might be, 30% of this particular exam that you haven't covered yet, or maybe you haven't finished your exam plan. That's fine. Judge it based on where you're at. If you've only studied, say, 60%, and you get 50%, well, it's not 50 out of 100, you've gotten 50 out of 60. You're on track. Some people might have got a little bit of a wake-up call with this, and that's always good as well. So, that's the mocks serve a load of purposes. As I mentioned in the last podcast with biology, you might have listened to it. The way you get good at doing exams is by doing them. So, having all the exams together, being under time pressure in an exam, but having your maths, having your English, having the different exams on the same day, having to go from your Irish head to your maths head, that's a very good practice as well, because it is a skill. You might have noticed in your mocks you got this thing I call exam fatigue. You think, oh, it's grand, I have 7 hours to study when I go home for my exam the next day, but you're absolutely wrecked from writing out 2 papers in the morning. And at least you learn this now versus in the middle of your Leaving Cert, where you leave your biology study to the night before and you realize, this is too late. So I want to talk a little bit about that, because this is our last, as far as I'm aware, our last Biology Academy Bites podcast. So I want to talk first of all about the paper. The paper, is on a Tuesday afternoon, and you start your Leaving Cert on the Wednesday. So you got Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, weekend, Monday, Tuesday morning, and then your one opportunity to show the Leaving Cert examiner how much biology you know. Number one, you're tired. Number two, you've probably done an exam in the morning. Maybe not, but probably. And number three, when's the last time you studied biology? When is the last time you've actually crammed your biology in? It could be 10 days ago. Okay, so what I'm going to say is you need to have a plan in place for this. So my plan for this will be, with your A4 sheets, you've already been building this plan. You know that over that weekend, you can actually go through the entire biology course in half an hour if you've taken the time to make your A4 sheets. Okay, if you've invested your time in that. We still, being March, have a little bit of time to build some of those, and if you are committed over the next couple of weeks, you could build up that resource. That is going to save you time in the future. It's going to allow you to study biology and study the whole course in a manner, in your own words, but in a manner that's, I suppose, conducive with the amount of time you have available in the middle of your Leaving Cert. So that's what you should be looking at there, because a lot of people say to themselves, just study the night before, study on that weekend. You can't study 24 hours a day. You probably were shocked about how tired you were during your mocks. So it is something to take into account. I say to my students, do every past paper. Okay, do a past paper. But if you can only do 5, pick 5 past papers and get them done. Okay, so you don't study a chapter. When it comes to kind of April, May, you're better off doing past papers and learning from them than studying an individual chapter. If a topic, and I'll go through the most important topics in a second, if a topic jumps out at you that you need to go study again, go do that. But if you're listening to this later on towards the Leaving Cert, you probably, being honest with you, will be better off and learn more from doing a paper, making mistakes, correcting yourself, and going again. And you could actually nearly make a biology career on doing that, just that. But it basically depends on where you're at with that. I personally would want all my students to be finished their biology study, all of it, and I mean including those 5 papers, 2 weeks before the Leaving Cert. So then when you're going in, you're really just recapping. I want you to be bored when you're doing your biology Leaving Cert exam. I want you to be like, this again? State the 2 main reasons why we require food again. I've already done this. Did they just copy and paste this from the 2007 question? I want you to be bored. I want you to be able to go into that exam so confident you know what's coming up in section A, B, and C based on the history that you're like, you don't listen to anyone else. Around the exam itself, people come up with these crazy ideas that, like, protista or the amoeba is going to be 2 questions in section A. It can't be that. And you probably don't believe that person, but by the 5th or 6th rumour you hear, it gets into your head and you start to doubt yourself. I need you to be finished 2 weeks before, because number 1, you're confident in your study, and number 2, you're so confident in the exam plan that you could nearly write an exam. If they asked you till last second, you could nearly make the exam out yourself. I want you to be confident in your exam plan so you know what questions you're going to be answering going in. And you also have a couple of, okay, well, if a question comes up and it's worded a bit strangely or in a bit of a more difficult manner, I can jump on and rely on another question. I want you to know about the timing of your exam. I want you to know to go through your section A, do the mandatory questions, section B and section C. Take some time, and you need to practice this at home as well. Take some time to take a break and then read through your exam again. A lot of people make mistakes with this. They kind of just read and look at their answers they've already given. Don't do that. What you're going to do is cover your answers, read the question, and then answer it verbally in your head. And if the one in your head matches the answer on the piece of paper, you're good to go. You're going to have cognitive bias that you're going to read your answer and go, yeah, that's right. Almost like in simultaneous equations, it's quite hard to see where you went wrong, see where you slip, see your mistake. You show your friend, they're like, oh, there it is. You're like, oh, how did I not see that? You're going to do that in the Leaving Cert exam if you just read over it. You want to do the exam again and check your answers against what's in your head. So that's where it pays to have done loads of past papers, and that's where it pays to have actually done the past papers verbally. Because not only does it help you in the exam, but it's something you can do on the morning of the exam or the night before. I would also say the night before the exam, don't do a crazy mock or anything like that. Definitely don't do that, because again, you could get thrown by a question that's not even on the course. Pick a past paper you've already done and just do it again. If you feel it's too monotonous to write out the paper again or to do it verbally in your head, ring up one of your mates doing biology and get them to ask you the questions. Varying up your study at this stage is basically it's as good as any sort of thing you can do. So I would say that. Now, if you're listening to this and you're coming up to your Easter break, it's basically a diluted version of what I just said. You're either going to go down the past paper route, or you're going to build up your A4 sheets and spend a bit of time doing that. I would suggest, if you're doing the A4 sheets, still try to do 1 past paper at least, because you want to have 5 done, as I said, in 2 weeks before the exam. So maybe set aside one of your study blocks for making up your A4 sheets or catching up on that if you have to, or set aside one for a past paper. If you've been disciplined, if you've been diligent following your step-by-step approach, there's nothing special for over Easter. I would suggest massively taking a break. Only you know if you deserve the break or not. I think that there's going to be a massive push, and there is every single year coming up to the Leaving Cert. This over Easter is the hardest time to get people to switch off. There should be, no matter who you are, at least 3 or 4 days where you take your bag, you put it up in the attic, you forget you're a Leaving Cert student, guilt-free for a few days. You should definitely plan your study plan over Easter. If you don't do that, if you don't plan the days you're going to have off, every day you're going to be waking up going, should I study today? Nah. Oh yeah, but you still feel guilty about it. You want to just completely switch off, and that will recharge your batteries for the final push. Too many times, students who have put so much into their Leaving Cert make mistakes or trip at the final hurdle by trying too hard, by not sleeping, by not eating, by not taking social breaks. Like you should go out, hang around with your mates, do whatever you got to do, and then be ready and refocused. So in terms of biology, have what you're going to do if you're going to do it. In terms of Leaving Cert in general, make sure you've definitely got at least a few days off, and then structure the rest of your study. Don't just go in and say, right, today's this day I'm studying, what will I do? You know, today you're doing biology, maths, and I don't know, French. And you know, out of biology you're doing this topic, these questions. You know, out of maths you're doing these two past paper questions, and you know, out of French you're learning this. I don't know, do they do role plays or whatever? And then what I would say is your action plan for the rest of the year is just rinse and repeat. You know, exactly what I've said there a few minutes ago. Once you've got to a place where you're comfortable, questions. The last thing I would say, topics that should be prioritized, and this is not in no way predictions, this is based on absolute fact. What are the most important topics, pound for pound, percentage for percentage in terms of biology? You know it's ecology, you know it. Break it down into the manageable chunks, the 4 types of question that can be asked. That. You know it's food. You know it's respiration, photosynthesis and enzymes. If you just did those chapters, it will absolutely blow your mind how the ins and outs of those chapters comes into absolutely everything else. Whether it even be DNA, whether it be microorganisms, plant biology, or even human biology, they are the most important things. And once you get that bottom base and include the experiments of the pyramid, you are good to go. If you only picked up and studied those now, you would do surprisingly well in the exam. Like, you wouldn't be getting a H1 or a H2, but if you knew those chapters, those ideas inside out, you will be getting in the 50s, the 60s. You'd be doing pretty well. So they're the ones you prioritize, you know, left to right, back to front. And then, as I said, you start building up your other exam plans. So that could include you going for the next rung of your ladder being human biology, microorganisms, or plant biology, whatever suits you. I, David Lewis, personally would go for the plant biology rung of our ladder next. It covers a few more questions. It's short enough, short and sharp. I know it's not the most interesting, but I would go for that. Then David Lewis would do I'm talking about myself in the third person as if I was doing the Leaving Cert. I would go for microorganisms, and then I would do the human biology at the end and just have that there for the options. A lot of people say, oh, but what about this particular chapter? That's not how, as you as an exam expert knows, it fits into the different units and the different sections. So that's what I would do. And if you don't get around 100% to covering some human biology chapters, remember, at the end of the day, you could just leave that topic out. So anyway, that's Biology Academy, the Academy Bites podcast. There's our 3 sessions. We might tip in again towards the end of the year, but I think I've covered you from start to finish on that. If you didn't listen to part 1 and part 2, please do. If they do build on each other to try get you in the they try been stuttering. They've tried to get at you in the mindset you would be in at that time of the year. So if you're listening to the third one, it's probably good you listen to part 1 and 2 as well. I do yourself a favor, listen to the other ones as well, because listen, it's teachers coming out with their absolute golden nuggets here to really convey you some sense of value in the the 10-15 minutes we have together. So the very, very best of luck in the exam. I hope you get everything you want, and then you can throw every set of your biology notes and book in the bin, and you can move on. And obviously the very best of luck in the CAO, and then you'll enjoy college, and best of luck with the rest of your life. I will be back again next year for more of the Academy Bites podcast. Chat to you soon. Thank you.